Wayne here from the Property Bloke. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We're looking forward to tonight's event. I'm really looking forward to taking you guys through how to maximize some of your cash flow within your portfolio. It's a big thing I like to promote at the moment, as especially with this low interest rate environment. So guys, as the audience builds, I just want you to know that if you have any questions, feel free in the comments, put some questions. If through the event you decide you want to have a strategy call, feel free to put in the comments strategy call, and you'll be taken through to our messenger bot, which can book you straight in as well. So guys, I'm very excited for tonight. And of course, the best form of gratitude I can get from you guys is that if you have anybody else that might be interested, feel free to share to them or So I've got the disclaimer here, guys. So the information tonight and the information we provide is just general information only, and only should be taken as and should not be taken as professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal and financial advice, taxation, or other advice to check how the website information relates to your unique circumstances. The Property Bloke will not be liable for any loss caused, whether that due to negligence from yourselves or otherwise arising from the use of our information we're providing tonight on our Facebook Live. So that's the boring part out of the way. So what we've got, guys, so I'm going to give a quick rundown, especially for the guys and girls who have not actually listened to us before. Like, this is our sort of 5th or 6th Facebook Live, and we have our regular guys. I can see some of our regular people on. Hey Tracy, hey Beck, hey Jesso. So basically what we want to do here is give a bit of a rundown to all the new people about what we do and how we go about it. So the Property Bloke is it's a property education company. So what our job is to mentor everyone through the maze of property investments. And as you can see by this slide here, we do all style of property investment education. It can range from just your mum and dad house and land package, and that can be negative geared or positive geared. It can do put and call options. We can help with commercial, small developments, subdivisions, duplexes, room sharing, whatever it may be. So guys, we specialise just in property investment. We don't do anything along the lines of shares or super or anything along those lines. But yeah, we're all about giving you a holistic education on property investment and narrowing it down to what will suit you. Okay, so our vision here at the Property Bloke is to expand the financial mindset of the everyday Australian by unlocking their true potential with property investment through education and mentoring. So what we mean by that, guys, is simple. A lot of people say the rich get richer, but we're about getting the everyday Australian into the mindset that they can also be financially successful. And that's my job, is to help you with your mindset, help you with some strategies, and to put together a property plan for you along the way. All right, so if you manage to grab the most recent Your Investment Property magazine, we do have an article in there. So if you haven't got the old Your Investment Property magazine, feel free to pop out to your local newsagent. I've got an article on myself and a bit about the Property Bloke as a company. But guys, that's also out in the newsagent at the moment. We'll be in the magazine for a few months now, so we'll keep you up to date with what we're putting through the Your Investment Property magazine. So on to tonight's information. So today's about maximising and maintaining cash flow. So last month, I think it was a month before, we mentioned about replacing your 6-figure income. We had a lot of feedback there on how can they maximise the cash flow out of their current properties and new properties. So that's what it's about tonight, is just teaching you how you can actually create great cash flow through different creative strategies that can even turn your existing properties into cash positive as well. It's just about thinking outside the square. Why are you guys all here? So the biggest question, that's always my biggest question, when I sit down with a new member, is why do you want to come and see me? Why do you want to do property? It's just understanding what your needs and objectives are. So for most people, it's more about, financial independence. Very often there's a tax strategy involved as well. Obviously you want to take control of your financial future, pay down your home loan, and also replace your income. But realistically, the biggest reason why is nobody wants to end up on the old age pension. Basically, at the present time, 80% of Australians are ending up on the old age pension. It's only about $17,000 per year. And whether that's part pension or full pension depends on your own scenario. Yet, you know, a lot of mum and dads out there at the moment, especially grandmas and granddads, they worked 40, 50, 60 years of paying tax, and they weren't educated financially to be able to put away for their future. They weren't taught the difference with the risk. So they're suffering at the moment financially on that $17,000 per year, and a lot of people have to downsize their home just to get some little bit more equity and a bit of cash out of their property. So I personally don't want to have to do that. I want to be able to live where I want to live and live the lifestyle I would love to live. Some people can work right up to retirement. Can work right up to almost death. But at the end of the day, if you're in a job you don't like, putting some investments in place can give you some leverage into change into a job you might like. It might be a lower paid job, but it'll be a much more satisfying role. Now, with Australia being the 5th highest tax nation in the world, we have to be aware that when we're putting together any sort of income, the tax man always gets paid first. And for most PAYG clients, you see on your pay slips, your tax gets taken out before you even get paid. So we want to make sure we get a bit of a tax strategy in place with properties. And then the next bit of your money goes towards your home mortgage if you have one, or your rent. And then you're left with the crumbs. So whatever's left over is all you get. So what we want to try and do is increase that money left over. So instead of it being crumbs, we want it to be a loaf of bread so that you can enjoy your lifestyle. Especially at the moment with ladies living to 82, men living to 79, we're all living a lot longer nowadays. Medication and everything that's available is keeping us alive a lot longer. So we have to be prepared to financially sustain our lifestyle. And we see on a regular basis that when people are reaching their late 40s, mid 50s, even early 60s, is when they're realizing they don't have enough to retire on the current lifestyle that they're living. So it's very important that the earlier you think, it's never too late, but the earlier you actually start putting some property investments or some sort of investment structure in place, is the better you're going to have the outcome. Okie dokie. So that's the reason why we're here, why everyone's listening to us tonight, and why I'm here in trying to educate you in different things you can put together. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to quickly break down, and I will do this a bit later on as well, is the different memberships available here at the Property Bloke. So there's 3 different levels of membership, and it's a bit like when you first start out at the gym. Now, if you haven't been at the gym for 10 years and you go and start with the heavy weights, your body's not conditioned for that, so you could actually hurt yourself. So it's very important to build a foundation of muscle and increase your weights over time. Otherwise, you could hurt yourself with irreversible damage. That's the way I treat you starting off with the property as well, with a property portfolio or just one investment property. So we have 3 levels of membership now at the Property Bloke. We actually put a new education level in place just recently for those people who can't quite afford to actually get started in property investment. So what that is, this is what we call the essential membership. So this is more about education. We expect you to be in this for about 1 year, maybe 2 years. And we normally recommend this membership for potential members who want to really invest in property but just can't put the money together, don't have the equity, don't have the income. But through the education, through our education portal, what you're managing to do is, one is to connect with other like-minded investors who you can possibly do joint ventures with, and also gain the knowledge that you need to be able to start investing. So when you finish the education portal and you move on to the next level of membership here at the Property Bloke, you're a lot more confident, you're a lot more knowledgeable on what you want to put in place. The next level is what we call our Ascend membership. So this is where we really want to get your portfolio to grow. So what we've got here, as you can see, we have 4 properties over a foundation, which is normally what we like to put together for a foundation of your portfolio. And it normally will relay between a growth property and a cash flow property. But what that'll do is it just sets a bit of a good solid base for you to work off from that point forward. And a foundation normally ranges from 2 properties to 4 properties. And like, we do have members with 6 properties as part of their foundation. It just comes down to your own financial circumstances. And of course, our top level is what we call the Elite membership. This is where you do next level investing. This will involve chunk deals, which could be property options, subdivisions, renovations. It's where you might get into managing and controlling a lot of doors on properties, and it also might be where you do a lot of room sharing. But it's basically where you really expand your mind to what's out there and what style of property investments, and then you pick and choose what you feel more comfortable with. But the biggest part is we teach you not to rely on one form of property investment. It's a bit like buying shares. You're not going to buy all BHP shares or all Commonwealth Bank shares. You're going to diversify between different shares within that asset class. And that's what property is as well. It's about doing different forms of property investment so that if something, doesn't work 1 year or 2 years, you have other forms of property investments to back you up. The government can make changes sometimes, and if it's a change for a good period of 3 to 6 months, it could go a bit quiet on different forms of property investing. So you want to make sure you're diversified across all types of property investment. So that gives you a little bit of a breakdown of the different levels of membership we have here at the Property Bloke. We have some members that start with the Essential, which is just education for 1 or 2 years, but we have probably 80% of members start with the Ascend membership. So that's people who already have equity, who already have income, who just want to get started in property investing, and they've been looking at doing it for a couple of years, or they might have seen their parents or their brothers or sisters or neighbours do it as well, and they want to know how to put it all together. All right, so this is what I mentioned before about building your foundation. So say, for example, we start you off on the Ascend membership. That's where we want to make sure, whether it's 2 properties or 4 properties or 6 properties, we want to make sure that we tie up 2 properties together. So we want to make sure one's a cash flow property and one's a growth property. You can have 2 cash flow properties, that's also okay, but you want to make sure that your foundation is in a cash positive position. That's the biggest part. You don't want to have a foundation too negative, because then you're in a position for you to go to the next level investing. You just don't have that cash flow behind you. So you don't want too many liabilities when you're heading into the elite membership. So as this little diagram here shows, we have 1 cash flow, 1 growth property, and the cash flow offsets each other, and it won't affect your own personal cash flow on a day-to-day basis. So once you get those 4 properties in place, then you can make the decision whether or not you want to continue building your foundation, or better yet, you want to upgrade to the elite membership and just start doing some next level investing. The benefit of that is, whilst you're in that while you're in the Ascend membership, we will still be training you and giving you knowledge on the elite membership. So when you're ready to join the elite membership, you've got a lot of confidence behind what you want to put together. All right, so just show you that property plan structure there again. So let's go on to here. What we have is cash flow properties. So I've got a couple of different structures here for cash flow properties, and I'm going to analyze each one as we go through. But guys, just remember, if you have any questions, feel free to put the question in the comments. But also, if, for example, you want a potential strategy call to see how you can gain through property investment, just put in strategy call or book an appointment inside the messages boxes, and you'll be sent to what we call our messenger chatbot, which will then put in place an appointment for you. And you can book a time that suits you just for a 15-minute catch-up. It's always good just to have a bit of a quick chat over the phone, and then we can either talk to you via video call, or we can pop into our office here at Lake Macquarie. Okay, so cash flow properties. We've got the first one's what we call a dual income or a dual key property. So what that does is, it's not a duplex. So if you see here, on the top part of the page, you've got a 2-bedroom. On the bottom part of the page, you've got a 3-bedroom. So it looks like a duplex. But the difference between a dual key property or dual income property and a duplex is, a duplex normally comes on the potential of splitting. So you can sell one side and keep the other, or sell both. But that comes with the downside of being on 2 separate titles. So what that means you've got 2 sets of council rates, 2 sets of insurance, and also 2 sets of strata fees in many cases. But with a dual key or a dual income property, what you've got is you've got on one block of land on one title, and the downside is you can't split them, but the upside is it's very low expenses to run the property. So you only have 1 set of council rates, 1 set of insurance, and you don't have any strata fees at all. Another common scenario for a dual income property, it might be a 3 or 4 bedroom house at the front and a granny flat at the back. It's the same sort of thing when it comes to dual income. Okay, so then we move into commercial property. Now, commercial property can be very cash positive. It does come with some disadvantages of the potential of long vacancies, the potential of harder to get funding. Normally your loan to value ratio or the percentage that the bank will lend you will be less, and of course they also come with higher interest rates. So unless you go into really huge industrial property, that's where they get a little bit more strict. But commercial property, you can definitely make good cash flow in, but you just have to be particular with the areas you buy in to make sure there's not an oversupply so you can achieve that regular tenant. And of course we come into room sharing. Now, room sharing is something that we're a big fan of here at the Property Bloke. Low income housing is actually becoming a lot harder to find for the everyday Australian, whether they're students or immigrants as well. Because at the end of the day, Australia's population is currently around 25,317,000. Now, it's taken Australia 230 years to get to the population of 25 million. And based on Australian population research, we're going to reach around 25.4 million by the end of this year, 2019. And in 2030, the population of Australia is said to reach around 29.8 million. So that's an increase of 21.5% from 2017. That's a huge population increase. And just to go a little bit further, within the lifetime of the typical Australian, the number of people living here is expected to jump to 37.6 million by 2050. That's a jump of over 12 million people in the next 30 years. So that's 50% more people living in Australia over the next 30 years. It took us 230 years to get to 25 million and another 30 years to get to 37.6 million. So there's going to be a need for housing. There's going to be a need, especially for sometimes the low-end housing is also important as well. Sometimes that's all people want. And a lot of investors dabble in the low-end market. There is what we call the median market, which is very important. You don't want to dabble in the top of the market, but definitely is when it comes to room sharing, you want to make sure you can try and rent out your rooms as cheap as possible, but still making a good return on your property. So with this example here for this room share, the first slide we have here is we've got a 4-bedroom home, $450 per week, 4 bedrooms. That's your traditional style 4-bedroom home. Now, if we were going to go out and room share this property, this is the sort of returns you would expect. You'd expect between $800 to $900 per week, but I'm just going to use 800 here, where you're renting out the rooms individually for $200 per week. Now, of course, you have to supply common room furniture, white goods, you have to pay the power bills and the internet. So you need to make sure you put together a bit of a furniture package. And on top of that, you do have to ensure that in some cases, you might want to put beds and bedroom furniture in place as well. But that comes down to, we normally allow around $15,000 to put all that in place. But to be honest, for your first property, and if you had a bit of spare time, the good old Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree is definitely one of the ones you could put together quite quickly. Okay, so if we rent these rooms out and you do get $800 per week, that's a $350 increase in rent yield. Right, that's very, very important that you see that, because you need that extra rent to help pay for any utilities, but you want a cash positive property of around about 15 grand a year on this scenario here. All right, just handed me a quick question. We've got a question here from Michael about, do you have any examples of dual key properties, for example, price point, location, and rent yield? Michael, I don't have any for tonight. Dual key properties are hard to get. Like, we do source them quite regularly. There's no worries there. We use our relationships with networks, with builders and land developers to be able to source these dual key properties for people. But the properties, when we're sourcing them, they're normally between the Sunshine Coast of Queensland down to Melbourne, and we're really looking at good price points in relation to, you know, your low 500s, mid 500s, up to your mid 600s, with rent yields of high 6s through to $800 per week. So if you wanted to know more, Michael, you could always book an appointment with one of the property coaches here to learn a bit more about that. Okay, so moving on to micro apartments. So we call this next level room sharing. And that's where you might convert an older home into 4 individual studio apartments. So what that entails is, in sometimes a fairly chunkable of a renovation, where say you can put kitchenettes in, showers in, toilets in, just enough room to put a bedroom, just for the tenant to feel comfortable. And the only common area really is the entrance. And that's the good part about micro apartments is you will achieve a lot higher rent because they have their own space where they can live and breathe and not have to worry any other tenants. So on a micro apartment, you might achieve up to $280 a week, possibly more, and they're able to live there no problems whatsoever. This is very important. A lot of elderly people like the micro apartments because they're living in a building with other people and they feel a bit safer. That's definitely an added plus. And when you're putting together micro apartments, like I mentioned before, you might have a reno cost of 100 grand, but you definitely get a higher rent yield. But this one definitely has to be council approved. Very similar to the room share, you do have to be careful of your local council restrictions. But the big one here with micro apartments is you can actually purpose build brand new micro apartments. You just have to fit within the town plan. So you can just purpose build these as well. So there's no worries there. All right, so that's a bit of the cash flow side of things with cash flow properties. But I'm going to do a case study, guys, as well at the end, just a really quick summarised case study, because I want you to understand how easy property investment is if you're committed. It's very important that you make the decision if you want to commit on how you can put it together and have a property coach help you put it together for you. Okay, so this one's property options. A lot of people do not know what a property option is, but this is a really good way of buying and selling property and not paying stamp duty or not having to take ownership or get a loan out for the property. Okay, so a quick summary on what an option contract is. So an options contract is an agreement between a buyer and a seller that gives the purchaser of the option the right to buy or sell a particular asset at a later date and at an agreed upon price. Option contracts are often used in the share market, such as securities or commodities, and in real estate transactions. With real estate, in most cases, you're able to on-sell the property with the option period and not pay stamp duty. And that's the big bonus of using a property option, is there's many, but one is not paying stamp duty. Okay, the 2 main options we use here at the Property Bloke, and there's many forms of options as well, but the 2 main options we use is what we call a put option. A put option gives the purchaser the right to buy or sell a particular property at a later date at an agreed upon price. But under a put option contract, you're never obligated to buy the property. You can never be forced to settle or take ownership. So that's good in the scenario where if you were to do a small land subdivision, the council went in there and found a rare frog or a rare flower, you're in a position where you don't have to take ownership. So if all the shit hits the fan, you're able to walk away from that property without too much loss, if any loss at all. And then you got your put and call option. So this one's a little bit more restrictive on the basis that this still gives you the right to buy the property upon an agreed upon price. But under the put and call option contract, you or the next buyer are obligated to take ownership. So you have to take ownership on the property. If you can't on-sell the property, you have to take ownership. And that is when the seller calls on your option to exercise the option prior to the expiry date. So it's very important you know the difference between those two, because one you're liable to settle and one you're not. And we call these short and long options. So whether you use a put and call option or just a put option, there's different structures here. So you've got a short option. Now a short option is normally like a 6 to 12 month option, and it's mostly used on small parcels of land and boundary realignments. That might be where you just want to move a boundary slightly to create more land value to be able to on-sell to the next buyer. But this can be done over a short period of time. And you have to know as well, guys, if you had a 6-month property option, it doesn't mean you can't sell it after the first week. You don't have to wait 6 months. You can sell it at any time within your option period and take the profit out of there straight away. And then you've got your long option. Now your long options are very oftenly used with companies like Westfield, where they might option a property for 12 to 36 plus months. They're normally used on large parcels of land giving time for complicated development approvals, and possibly giving time to option neighbouring properties. So what I mean by that is you might find one property where you want to put a 36-month option because you want to try and accumulate more properties around that one property so that your possibility for profit becomes a lot higher. I've got a couple of examples here for you. So this is a simple 12-month property option where you have 3 properties side by side, and you buy each property for $400,000 to the total option value of $1.2 million. So this is not one option contract, this is actually 3 option contracts with 3 individual sellers. But you're optioning the whole lot for $1.2 million. Then within that 12-month period, you're in a position where you can sell that full land parcel to a developer, and you can on-sell the rights for them to buy the property. So you're not doing any development approvals, you're basically being paid for doing all the negotiating to get the options in place from the beginning. And a prime example here is you bought the properties for 1.2, you on-sell together for 1.4, so you're able to make around about a $200,000 profit within that 12-month period, not pay stamp duty, never take ownership on the property, and don't have to worry about organising a loan. Now that's very good in this financial climate where getting loans for investments or land or whatever it might be is getting a little bit harder at the present time. It's actually getting a bit easier. We're seeing it getting a little bit easier, but it's still a little bit difficult. But just so everybody is aware, whatever profit you make on the property option, you still have to pay capital gains tax. The government won't let you get away with making a profit without paying some tax. This just enables you to maybe not pay stamp duty in most cases. And this is an example here of what we call a long option, which is an 18-month option. I'm going to use, just for the ease for you guys, I'm going to use the same 3 separate properties. So you're still buying these 3 properties for 1.2 million, but we're going to do a development approval. So we're going to take the next step. So the next step is to actually put a development approval through. And the development approval might cost you around $100,000. But you might be able to get approved, say, for 8 individual townhouses. This is just examples, but you might be able to get approval there for 8 individual townhouses. So your end effect is, with that 18-month option, you're able to buy the property for 1.2, spend $100,000, so it owes you 1.3 million. And if you can on-sell that property, for example, 1.6 million, you've got a profit there of $300,000. Now, the biggest thing you have to be aware when you're dealing with options, or really any sort of property investment, I feel, is not to be too greedy. So what I mean by that is, if you're on selling the property here at 1.6 million, for the developer, you want to make sure that they can see value. So I normally suggest when you're doing your costings, is not to put a top dollar end sale price. I normally say to do a very, very conservative sale price, because if you're too greedy, you're going to end up either A, having to take ownership on the property, or B, walking away from the property and not being able to make any money whatsoever. So it's very important to not be too greedy, because with a lot of land developers or builders, if you build a relationship with them, your next property you come along, they'll be happy to move forward with you on that one as well. So it's all about, in a way, it's about sales. You're actually selling to the developer, and you're keeping them on your books so that when you do your next property option, they might actually go ahead and buy that one off you as well. Relationships is so important in the real estate industry to help you get ahead financially. If everybody does the right thing and it's a win-win for everybody involved, it's a definite perfect outcome. Now, I just threw this slide in here for you guys as well. So what I mean by this slide is, when it comes to property options, a lot of people are a little bit nervous with their first property. So within the Property Bloke community here, we have people who are a little bit more educated, and a lot of people that are very new. And this is where it comes down to the education or the essential membership, where they might be out there researching and find a property, but they physically can't put it together. And that's where you might get a joint venture. So a joint venture is where you might have 1 or 2 or 3 or more partners involved with the transaction. So I've just noted down here that there's a few forms of joint ventures. So the first one, for example, is you've got a research joint venture. Now, our essential members who do all the education, they're definitely within the realms of being a research joint venture where they actually find the deal. And then, of course, you've got the deal maker, the person who actually meets with the seller to work out the option arrangement and get the deal signed up. If you were to consider potentially building the development and taking ownership on the land, you may need a capital person, so someone who put in some cash to help you get the property out of the ground. And in some cases, you can actually get what they call a cash flow joint venture. And that's where you might not be able to afford the monthly repayments on the loan, and you have another person involved who actually pays the monthly repayments on the development loan, so you don't have to. And then of course you've got the marketer, the person who actually sells the property for you. It could just be a real estate agent, but you might have someone who has contacts and they might be part of that joint venture as well. But of course, if you had 5 people involved in this joint venture, your percentage of profit will be a lot lower. But sometimes it's definitely a good way to get started if you have some trust involved, but you just want to make sure all the joint venture agreements are a win-win for everybody involved, and that's where we definitely suggest you get some legal advice on that structure. All right, so guys, that's 2 things there. So we've gone through here quickly some property options. We've also gone through some cash flow strategies as well. Now, when it comes to the next part here, I'm just going to go through a little case study. A case study here that I've prepared, just a quick one, just so we can see what, just so you might relate to it yourself. All right, so just give me 2 seconds. I'll go down to the next slide. So I hope everyone's still awake. Give us a wave if you're awake, guys. Hello? Anyone there? Nah, I'm joking, it's okay. So what we've got is this case study here. So we've got Michael and Jessica Thompson. Michael works full-time on $150,000 a year, paying a shitload of tax. Jessica works part-time on $41,000 a year. They've got the average Australian home there, $700,000, and they've got a loan of around $250,000. Now, I'm only going to work off a short-term objective. Now, if I was actually building a property plan for one of our members, I would do short-term objectives and long-term objectives. But I don't want to go into long-term objectives tonight because you'll get bored, and I want you to really listen to this short-term objective of mine. So their short-term objective is to set a foundation of 2 properties and replace Jessica's income within 2 years. Jessica will then be able to give up her employment and focus full-time on their portfolio. So firstly, I thought Jessica just wanted to retire, but no, she wants to become a professional property investor. And for her to do that, she has to give up her job. So what we do is we focus on just replacing Jessica's income, and you might notice we're not actually focusing on paying off the home loan. And the reason why we're not doing that at this stage is because we're very early in the piece. It's like, the best way to explain it is when you first start out in business. So you want to say, go open a cafe next door. For the first couple of years, you really shouldn't be like returning yourself too much income. All your profit should be put back into the business to help it grow. It's very similar to a portfolio of properties. In the early days, you really want to make sure you're returning the money back to the portfolio to help you grow that portfolio, because then it doesn't put any financial strain on your personal finances. So the way we're going to do this, guys, is quite simple. First property here we're going to look at, we're going to buy a property here for $495,000. This would be a 4-bedroom, brand new house and land package. And there's a reason why in Jessica's scenario, why I want to go brand new. You don't always have to go brand new, but there's a reason here for Jessica's scenario. So purchase price $495,000. And I know a lot of you are saying today, where can I find a brand new 4-bedroom house for $495,000 where it's going to be able to get tenants and get capital growth? They're definitely out there, guys. A big problem we face is when you're living in the capital cities of Australia, prices are quite expensive and you just physically can't understand how you can achieve a brand new property for that price. But they are available. You just need to network with the right people. So to buy that property for $495,000 is you've got your legal fees and your stamp duty, which just allow about $20,000. And because we're going to potentially room share this property, we're going to have to put in a furniture package of around about 15 grand. So with Michael and Jessica, they're quite lucky because they live within an hour and a half's drive of a few suburbs that they could possibly do this in. Especially for your first room share, you don't want to do it too far away. The reason why I say that is to put together the room share could take you a weekend or two organising the furniture and just laying out the property the way you want it to be. And you don't want to be driving interstate or flying the plane. In most cases, a lot of people can do this not too far from where they live. So in this scenario here, we've got a total loan of 530 grand. So let's look at your outgoings. So with your outgoings here, we have interest, that's interest repayment, sorry, $500 per week. And you've got rates and insurance at $55 a week, utilities, and of course the property management fees as well. Now, if you are a savvy investor, over time you could probably get rid of the property management fees, and you could manage the room share property yourself. But if you're not a savvy investor early on, I always recommend to use someone to help you to get started and then potentially take it over yourself long term for the room share. So in this scenario here, your total outgoings are around $650 per week. Now, the potential rent for this property, if individually room shared, is around $900 per week. So if you take your $900 per week, less your outgoings of $650 per week, your total income left over is $250 per week, or $13,000 per year. And that's right, that's 13 grand a year that Michael and Jessica have already started to replace part of Jessica's income. So depending on what job Jessica has, she could potentially cut back a day straight away if she really wanted to. It just comes down to your own personal circumstances. Okay, so of course, everyone's asking, okay, we bring in $13,000 of passive income, now I've got to pay tax on that money. Now, this is where I mentioned before, with Michael and Jessica, they've gone for a brand new property. And the reason for that is depreciation. Now, depreciation, and you've got to get accountant advice on this, but a depreciation is where you get a quantity surveyor's report by a company, like we use a company called BMT and Associates, and they do a quantity surveyor's report where they pull up all the depreciation that's claimable against this rental money. Now, in this scenario here, the actual depreciation is higher than what the income is. So if you see there, the income's $13,000, building depreciation is $14,000. So you're actually in a position where you've got zero tax payable. So what we've been able to do is replace 13 grand of Jessica's income and not pay any tax on it whatsoever. So for me, that's a win-win scenario for everybody but the tax office. All right. So this is a little cash flow plan I would put together for Jessica and Michael to create an outcome for their first objective being completed within 24 months. So you see there, year one, property one. That's the one I just mentioned to you. That's $13,000 per year of tax-free income. Property two, which you'd put in place in year two, potentially earlier, but I always like to make sure the first property is up and running comfortably before you get into your second property. So that is another $13,000 per year worth of income as well. And the next one is what we call managing doors. So you don't actually own the property, but you're managing the door of the property. That actually is a little bit of a higher income, around about $15,000. I won't go into managing doors tonight. I'll keep that one for another night. But you've got, what Jessica's been able to do here is replace $41,000 of her income tax-free. So Jessica's currently paying nominal tax on her current income of $41,000, going to work every day, dropping the kids at daycare. And what she's been able to do here is replace that $41,000. She probably might want to still stick her kids in daycare to get some time away from them, but she's in a position where if she wants to, she doesn't have to, and she can focus her time and energy on growing her portfolio at the next level. Now, if after this first objective, Michael and Jessica are comfortable with that outcome, we actually accelerate their portfolio by transferring them from the Ascend membership right up into the Elite membership. So therefore, Jessica can have a lot more time and a lot more one-on-one coaching to accelerate their plan. And what that'll probably put in place is they'll be able to replace Michael's income within a few years, say, I don't know, maybe another 3 to 5 years' time, because Jessica's working full-time as a property investor. And that's everyone's dream. Jessica is controlling her own life, her own money with her own time. So that's the important factor. This is the reason why I teach property investment, is to get people to understand it's not difficult. If you have an understanding and you can comprehend what's happening, property investment is easy. It's just getting that first 1 or 2 properties under your belt. I'm not going to say it's going to be like cloud nine the whole way through. You're in a position where things can go wrong, things sometimes don't go to plan, but that's where here at the Property Bloke, you've got property coaches to help you. So if you have something go wrong, you book an urgent call, and you chat to your property coach or myself, and we're able to give you advice on what to do or what direction to head with each individual issue. Property investment isn't 100% foolproof, far from it, but if it's set up correctly, you shouldn't have many problems whatsoever. All right, guys, so that's basically how we've replaced Jessica's income in a quick case study. And as you can see, it's 2 properties owned and another door managed. It's not difficult. It's not, we're not asking you to buy 10 properties to be able to get that in place. We're actually just suggesting 2 properties and a managed door. A lot of property investors buy 1 investment property and that's it. There's not a lot of property investors that go to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 plus properties. It's because they don't have the confidence and they don't have the direction on how to put it all together. They buy the property next door and they see it costs them thousands of dollars a month and they think it's not worth it. But of course, it isn't. That property they bought isn't worth it. You've got to be a bit more smarter. All right, guys. So I've been annoying you now for around 45 minutes with my presentation. So like I mentioned before, if you want a strategy call, all you have to put in place in the comments is that you want a strategy call, but you can also give us a call anytime or send us an email as well if the timing for today is not your time. But you just got to understand that you can take the next 20 years of experience to get to this level of investor, or you can join us here at the Property Bloke and we can help you accelerate your opportunities and get you to an income replacement strategy well before that. All right, guys. And like I mentioned before, free 15-minute strategy. You can give us an email, info@thepropertybloke.com.au, a call on 1300 322 300, or you can always put a strategy call comment in the comments as well. Now, at the end of the day, guys, what you're in a position of doing here is this presentation we'll leave on our news feed. So if you're watching it by yourself and you want your husband to watch it or your wife to watch it, it'll be available on our news feed for the next couple of weeks. But if you have any questions, send us a message through Facebook, give us an email, or give us a call. And I'm back. How it's all going? I hope you don't need too many Panadol. But this is just a short structure or a short little presentation of what you can do. I'll be honest with you, if you get me cornered at a barbecue, I'll talk your head off for 6 or 7 hours. It doesn't bother me whatsoever, because property investment is this massive funnel of so many things you can do, and it's just narrowing it down to what suits you guys with your comfort zones, financially, and your age. You might have young kids, you might feel like you're too old. So our job is to mentor you through the process to give you an understanding of what's available to you. Not every form of property investment is available to everybody. All right, guys? But I really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks again, guys, and happy investing. And if I don't get to speak to you beforehand, have a fantastic Christmas. Thanks again.